official debate happening. We have username, we have Azgerod. For this debate, username's taken the position that they have knowledge which is not based upon unjustified assumptions. Azgerod has taken the opposition. As always, when we're based upon who concedes, we don't get a vocal concession from either participant. We'll put it to a voting poll in which you, the audience, can decide on who you think performed better overall in the debate. No time limit, light moderation. You guys can get started.
All right. So yeah, you don't really need to give like an opening statement. I don't think it's like kind of just I'm going to be attacking the idea and then you can, argue with me about it. So my point, I'm going to try to argue that it's impossible for any belief to to not be justified, to not be based upon unjustified assumptions. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a little example, practical example here. So first, I'm going to ask username, can you provide me with a belief that you hold that you think is not based upon an unjustified assumption?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My internet cut out for a moment. I'm sorry.
Did you hear me?
Yes, okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna give you an example, right? Any example.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an example of uh engine with internal combustion that has four tacts, and each tact comprises of well, how you translate it in English. Okay, the first tact would be insufflation, which is injection of the fuel. The next step would be an actual combustion, which is burning of the internal fuel that provides the heat energy that leads us to the next, how you translate it in English, the next act, which is compaction. The compaction of fuel creates gas that later gives an energy to the car that is needed to fire it up. And the fourth act will be blowing, uh, which injects, I mean, like gives the gas out of, or gets the gas out of the engine and powers the car, which is the last act. So this knowledge that I just said is based upon my practical knowledge that I've learned through my studies as technician mechanic, which is proven to be correct and based upon empirical evidence and my own experience that I had with machines and what I've learned not only from theoretical but from practical knowledge, since knowledge as whole is based either of theoretical knowledge or practical one. And practical one can be your own practical knowledge or the practical knowledge that you've learned from someone else's experience that is written on, for example, a good manual that you can read with. Oh, I mean, read. I'm sorry for mispronounce here.
Mm.
So yeah, that would be my example, which is leading me to my own hypothesis that this hypothesis that I said is absolutely true, proven by practice, proven by
Mhm.
theory, and proven to actually be in reality present in our common life and which we all can see.
All right. So you've made a complicated statement. I don't know it word for word about like cars and combustion. Am I right?
Yeah, well, I did
Okay.
that to
Sure.
confuse you,
Yeah,
of
no,
course.
no, no. Yeah, no worries. So that whatever that complicated statement was, I think you've, shown enough that it itself is not an unjustified assumption. You based it on something, right? And one of the things that you said you based it upon was your experience, right?
My experience and my studies and my practice.
Okay, experience, studies, and practice. So if any one of those was unjustified, then this claim would be unjustified. Is that right?
If any of those experience were unjustified, uh, I can work with them because unjustified experience, I mean, those who are not proven to be correct can be really damaging to
Mm-hmm.
my practice and my Yes, my knowledge in general, concluding the technician practice.
Okay. So I'm gonna say, would it be fair to say that while your complicated mechanical statement is not only is not only based upon your personal experience, but it is based upon your personal experience. Would
Can
that
you
be fair?
repeat that, please? Please, I'm
Like,
sorry.
well, you had other things that you used to justify your you said your studies, your experience, and one other thing, I believe. So it wouldn't be true for me to say that that mechanical statement was purely only based upon your experience, but would you agree that it is based upon your experience? Like
I
partially?
I I don't understand this. I'm sorry. Do you say that it's not only based upon my experience? Do you say that?
Yeah, it's based upon your experience and also your studies and some other things. So it's not only based upon your experience, but you did, like, you would say that it is partially based upon your experience, right?
I would say it's based upon my experience and experience of the other scientists
Okay.
or mechanics that created the the
All right.
the, the parts.
Okay. So why do you trust your experience?
Because I've tried it through my own test. I've tried it through, well, my own test with experiment, and before that I did construct hypothesis, and before that I did a research. So that concludes with my testing experiment and my analyzing the results of it, that I can prove that my hypothesis is true or is partially true or false, that can later lead me to report results or conclusion that I can give based only upon my own experience and my own scientific method.
So I'll grant that you did that research and you generated your hypothesis and it was falsifiable and you tested it and it was not falsified, so you know, etc. So I would just ask, why is it that you believe that that sort of process is valid justification for your belief that experience is a valid justification?
Because if the experience and if the test with experiment is proven to be correct, it actually shows that hypothesis is true. And by showing that hypothesis is
Let,
true,
let me
we,
let me
we
stop you
can.
there. Let me stop you there. So you said, if this, then that. Why do you believe that that's the case?
Can you repeat, please?
So you made a claim, which was, if I've, tested my experience and et cetera, and with scientists and et cetera, and I've shown it to be true, then it's like a valid justification or whatever. So I'm asking, why do you take that to be the case? Why is that if then statement valid?
Because it's objectively valid. It's
Why
absolutely
is it objectively valid? What is your justification for that claim?
because it's proven with practice and scientific method, which are the methods of which every science and every complex doing is concluded by, or based upon scientific method and upon empirical evidence.
Okay, why do you believe that it's proven by science?
Can I give you an example? Maybe the
No,
easier
I
one.
mean, let's just stick with this example.
Oh, of course, of course. You asked me why do I think it's proven by science, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they constructed one of the most important things that we use in modern society, which are motor vehicles, or how you call it, vehicles with internal burning, which is very,
Why?
you call it compulsion on English. I'm sorry, I have problems with translating words sometimes. So the whole concept of the engines with internal combustion, they can be run, for example, they can be run by, the most common ones are run by diesel, by benzene, or by
Okay,
gas.
sure. I don't need to know the details, but I'm going to ask, why is it that you believe that it matters at all, or that it's a valid justification to say that science is important, therefore science has um, proves this particular claim.
Because for the progress of human society and for its own good, the science, when it's proven by factual knowledge and by empirical evidence, is not only necessary but I would say a key part of every human being.
What is the worth? Why do we care about empirical facts or evidence at all? Furthermore, why do we care about logic at all?
Because for the okay, because for the human life to be longer and for it to progress to the older stadiums like older age, youth, middle age, for all of it to happen you need to have doctors, you need to have technicians, you need to have
No.
scientists, you need to have every of that for the human life to be healthy,
Yeah.
valid, and full of enjoyment. Without that, human life is empty and filled with some, well,
And
other.
why do we want the human life to be filled with joy and not empty and filled with sadness and despair?
Because the biological needs of of human person are the ones that science can give. Science can give you easier solution to having a
Sure.
family. Some people who cannot who are sterile or can get kids, they can get kids in the other ways. Some people that, for example, we had a problem with giving birth with women. Women, until the modern medicine, women had a really complicated status with labor. They had a lot of complications, a lot of bad experiences that resulted in many dead children. And now with modern medicine that can provide us a healthy and more progress and a good alternative to the primitive form of society we used to live in. Now our society is progressing with science, with the knowledge that is based upon practice, and also philosophy. Philosophy, practice go hand in hand. Gives us a new door to open to the new stadium of our human development.
Sure. So when I did that little like example there, the purpose of that was to illustrate a particular form of argumentation that I was just engaging in. And what I was doing was so you first stated a claim, right? The mechanical claim, the one about cars. And then I asked, okay, so what's your justification for believing that? And then you gave a justification. And then I asked, what's your justification for believing in that justification? And then you gave your justification for that. I said, well, what's your justification for that? And so on, right? And so I just wanted to give this kind of example so that you know what I'm talking about when I go forward with the rest of this argument.
Of course,
So if I keep asking you those kinds of why is your justification itself justified, if I ask you those kinds of questions
of course.
infinitely, like for all time, hypothetically, right? If I just keep asking you it forever, right?
Okay.
What's going to happen? Right? Well,
Y-
what's going to happen logically? It just has to be the case. There are only three possibilities. One, eventually you have to admit, I don't have a justification for that. Or, right, second possibility, you have a series of beliefs that are arranged in a circle where they justify each other, right? Or one justifies the other and it goes around in a little loop, and eventually you have something that is implied by a belief which justifies that belief. So you can have a circle, right? The other form, the final of the three forms, is a form of infinite regression, where you just say, okay, well, let's say I have this belief A, and for any belief A that I hold, there is a belief A prime, such that A prime justifies A, and you'd give some logical rule that makes it so that A prime actually does logically imply A. But then the problem with that one is that uh, the uh, the little rule, the logical rule that you create, for creating for creating a justification given an arbitrary belief, that rule that you create is itself unjustified, right? So to go back to the circle one, you've got a circle of beliefs where each belief is justified, right? All of the beliefs in your whole system are justified, right? However, at the very basis of your your whole system of belief, you've got this circle, and the trouble is that the circle is not justified, right? Now you might say, well, the circle isn't a belief, so it doesn't really have to be justified. But the trouble is that what actually must have happened, right? Like chronologically, what must have happened is either that you at some point decided to take as unjustified assumptions all of the beliefs in that circle, or you must have taken as one or more unjustified beliefs, one or like some of the beliefs in the circle, right? In which case it would generate the rest of the circle from that starting point. In either case, you have an unjustified set of beliefs that you must start with. To go back to the final, the first case that I laid out of the three, if you just end your search, your justification tree by just some set of unjustified beliefs, well, you've got unjustified assumptions that everything else is based upon. So again, you've got the singular nodes, you've got the circle, and you've got the infinite regression. Each of these possibilities is constitutes an unjustified assumption upon which all of your other beliefs are based. And I've shown and can show, if you want more, I can show again that each of those three cases is each of those three cases does constitute an unjustified assumption, and those three cases are the only three possible ways to justify your belief system.
So what if I give you a fourth case? Would you consider it valid, or would you consider it invalid, for example, due to, I don't know?
It might be valid. Let's hear it.
What if I base all of my justifications upon real-time struggles, and the justification I do not have answer for, I will simply not answer it?
Well, then that's an assumption. That's an unjustified assumption.
Yes, but the assumption is that I am asking something or telling about something that I do not know. And my motto in my entire life is that I do not think, I do not assume, I know things. I know things from my own research, from the empirical evidence, and from the factual things that I've read that are based upon checked resources. I'm not resources, pardon me, sources. Checked upon sources that I've been looking into. I'm not ever gonna assume or tell or speak about something in a serious manner that I do not have a clue about. I'm always gonna ask the person I'm dealing with, okay, can you tell me about that, or that? Because I do not know anything about that. I cannot assume because I do not know. I can assume in myself you're correct, which is first step of scientific method, asking a question. But assumption or asking a question is not itself a key part of knowledge or any huge part of knowledge. It's only a tiny bit that only creates one pillar of many pillars that concludes a knowledge. It's not in itself the whole base of knowledge or the important part of it, which I can prove.
So here's the thing, right? I think you did say yes, it's an unjustified assumption, but then you said no because my motto is that I don't have any unjustified assumptions, but you seem to, and I would argue that you must, logically, you must, and unless you have a refutation for my sort of topological argument about the tree of beliefs, I would say you must concede that fact. And just to clarify, you keep going back to this like, well, all my beliefs are based upon science, so they're not unjustified assumptions. But the trouble is
Yep.
that you have to justify science. You have to justify why science is valid. And then if you go to, well, because it's useful for humans, you have to justify why do I care that it's useful for humans? And then whatever justification you give for that, you've got to give a justification for it, right? And this is the whole point, is that you eventually, it doesn't matter what the justifications are. It doesn't matter how noble they are. It doesn't matter how
Exactly.
scientific they are. It doesn't matter how factual they are. Eventually, they're going to bottom out into either specific nodes or a circle, which is itself unjustified in its origin or in its entirety, or you're going to have an unjustified
Exactly.
rule for regression. Okay, I'm glad that you agree, and I think that
Absolutely.
constitutes a concession.
No, no, because you're just not speaking about my statement. You're saying that I have a knowledge which is based upon justified assumptions, and
No.
you are speaking. No, no. Let me finish, please. My knowledge is indeed justified by science. You're talking about the science itself justifies my knowledge, and science with its practice and its provable theory and evidence we can prove that science and scientific laws are correct. And let me give you an example. So let us give a very popular example that every healthy human adult should already know, which is, for example, universal law of gravity. Okay, we all know the story about Newton, how he found out gravity, right? So he was sitting under the tree and he was sleeping, right? An apple fell on his head. And then he's asking himself, wait, um, what, why is it falling on me? Why doesn't it fall in the sky? And then we are having an assumption, but it's justified because we see the apple falling on us and it creates a tickle in our mind that can be justified afterwards with with the next steps of scientific method, which is a research. Now let's skip to all the stuff that you are not interested in or anyone here, which is analyze and later the two parts of scientific method, which is either that hypothesis is true or the other method that it's untrue or partially true. Now, if the Newton, as a great scientist, he was uh, concluded that hypothesis is true using physics and mostly mathematics, we get report results which are concluded of all the scientific method steps that Newton used in his research. So we have a proven method, a proven fact by a great scientist, then concluded that yes, gravity is indeed universal, not like the other scientists before him that put focus only on speed and not in the gravitational, how you say it in English, statement, gravitational theory, which Newton mostly put in. So we have a fact proven by scientists with using scientific method. Another of his facts, for example, that is very popular and that also most of the people know is the second Newton's law, which is that force equals mass times acceleration. So we have here, I will skip all the bullshit parts no one is interested in and just give the goal that hypothesis is ultimately true. It's proven by science. It's proven by practice. It's proven in real life, for God's sakes. You know that the force equals mass times acceleration. So we have a conclusion that hypothesis is true. And since my knowledge is based upon a true hypothesis, yes, I can call it completely justified knowledge. Not even an assumption, but the absolute truth of knowledge that I got in from the hypothesis that was experienced and practiced by a great scientist.
Right. So I just want to be clear. I think we're talking past each other a little bit here. So it sounds like you're arguing that your beliefs are justified, and I don't disagree with you about that fact. Your many all of, I'm sure that like 99.9% of your beliefs are justified. The trouble in that there's some other belief you have which like kind of implies this belief, or maybe it's not deductive implication, but maybe it's more of a scientific empirical inference, right? So I grant that most of like the beliefs, like the law of
Oh,
thermodynamics that you believe, those things are justified by other beliefs you have. My point is that if you trace back the beliefs, if I keep asking you why, eventually you do have to bottom out. So let's take it to a way more basic, fundamental level, right? So
okay, okay.
you
I understand
all
what you're talking about.
okay, so like all the beliefs that you have, all these scientific statements that you're making, right? These are
Exactly. Okay.
all these are all based upon, for one thing, an assumption that there even is a real reality to begin with, right?
Okay.
Which
Okay.
may,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. I understand you. Maybe you should have like talked about that sooner, so I
Uh,
understand
right.
what you're aiming at.
Yeah. So like the thing is that the the proposition that we have here isn't that none of your beliefs are justified, or that or something like that. It's not that I have justified beliefs. It's I have beliefs which are not based upon unjustified assumptions. So all I have to show is that when you trace back all the justifications for your beliefs, right, that eventually
Okay.
you hit
Okay.
an unjustified assumption. So
Okay.
for
So
example, can you justify the belief that there is an actual reality, some objective reality, or
Of
that kind
course,
of
of
thing?
course. So what Azgerod is talking about is my personal obsession with all the knowledge, facts, and logic, and why do I think that it's a key part of philosophy and my personal philosophy, which is since I am a part of Marxist school of thought, which is based upon dialectics and dialectical materialism. So that's what you're basically asking me, okay?
Well, not like in a roundabout way. I'm asking, like,
Yeah, yeah.
why do you even believe that there's a world to begin with, which is kind of the
Of
basis
course,
of all empirical knowledge? Yeah.
of
Why
course.
do you trust your senses? Why do you believe that A is equal to A? Why do you believe very basic logical assumptions?
Of course, I'm gonna answer that. So, what if I tell you that A is not equal to A, that it's completely not equal to A, and by using my
Okay.
own method of materialism, if I prove you that A is not equal to A, what about that? Are you here?
Yeah, Amir, if you prove that A was not equal to A, then I would ask you for your justification for the proof, and then I would give you
Of
I would
course.
ask you for your justification for the justification of the proof, and so on.
It will be proven absolutely upon the material reality and upon the empirical evidence.
But
So
wait, don't waste your time though, because like I'll grant you that maybe you could prove that A is not equal to A, and I actually don't care, because the trouble is that I'm just gonna we're gonna do this infinitely, because I'm just gonna ask you,
oh, so
okay, right?
okay. I understand you. So you're saying that you do not care if A is equal to A, but if you say that you do not care if A equals is equal to A, that means, and you're saying, okay, I don't care. You're right. A is equal to A. That means that my whole theory about material reality of A being equal to A is absolute truth. So you're giving me the right to say, okay, my philosophy is absolutely true because you just said it is.
No, no.
Yes, you basically said that.
No, I'm saying I'll grant you like that you can justify the belief that A is not equal to A, but then I would have to ask you, what is your justification for that justification? But anyway, like we're gonna go around in circles for a million years if we keep doing this. I hope that I guess I haven't clearly communicated to you the trouble with this whole justification thing, but I hope that the audience at least knows what I'm talking about here. So just to reiterate, any given belief that you have is either itself an unjustified assumption, or it is justified by another belief. If it's justified by another belief, then that other belief must also be either an unjustified assumption or be justified by another belief. You get the pattern. You have to infinitely go backwards, or you have to stop. And the ways that you can go infinitely is by having a circle, or by having an infinite regress, right? And if you stop, then I've already won. You've got unjustified assumptions. If you have a circle, then you have to justify the circle, right? Either you have at some point taken all of the beliefs in the circle to be true at once, in which case you have to justify it's essentially just a conjunction of different propositions put together as a single belief, right? I believe A and B and C and D and E, etc., right? Or you started with like one or maybe two of the beliefs in the circle, and then the rest of the circle was generated by the chain of implications, right?
Okay, okay.
So wait. Let me just finish. This is my closing statement. And as I say, the third and only other possible way for this kind of system of beliefs to be to bottom out is with an infinite regress, where you have some logical rule such that if you have belief A, there is another belief A prime, such that A prime implies A, and that creates an infinite chain backwards. But then the rule of inference that gives you that backward chain of beliefs must itself be justified, and because we're kind of positing that this is the place where we bottom out, it must not be justified. So therefore, no belief can be based upon justified assumption. There's no way that a belief can exist that is not based upon unjustified assumptions. Therefore, username, none of your beliefs could possibly be such beliefs, and that's the refutation of the proposition.
All right, I'll give my closing statement. It will not be that long. So my position is that I have knowledge which is not based upon uh, unjustified assumptions, and I will answer it in short manner. So the whole definition of knowledge is understanding of or information about a subject that you get by experience or study, either known by one person or about people in generally. And since my knowledge, when we can say in the whole definition, is based upon experience and study of someone's else experience or people in general, and by their experience, my knowledge is absolutely justified by experience of one person, of people in general, or by me, and that is my conclusion. My statement is indeed correct.